What can I say about these remarks that hasn't been said in the very definition of anticlimactic? Which I once heard told to me as the definition of anticlimax is for God, for country, and for Yale, but never mind that. Sorry, we have some, Dartmouth grad liked that. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. It's really nice to join you on this most joyful Shabbat. Once again, allow me on behalf of all of my clergy colleagues and this holy congregation celebrate the birth of Leo Judah and the presence of his family here tonight. What a blessing you all are to our WRT family. As I mentioned at the beginning of our worship this evening, I returned from Israel on Monday morning. In what the pilot of our United flight from Tel Aviv to Newark declared was his fastest time ever on that route, making it in an unprecedented 10 hours and 46 minutes, assisted by a reverse jet stream tailwind. So that was unusual, landing at Newark at 3:10 in the morning instead of 4:30 in the morning, but that's nice. By the way, nobody's there. You go right through passport control into an Uber and you're home. So I'm still a little jet-lagged, I guess, is what I'm trying to tell you. And therefore, having some photo memories of my time in Israel this past week will assist me. All right. Oh, I got to turn this thing on, don't I? There we go. What begins as a normal travelogue will soon become an opportunity to teach some Torah. But first, a week in Israel. I began by being welcomed to Kilat Yozma, one of the fastest growing Reform congregations in Israel. When Yozma was founded by its first rabbi, Rabbi Kinneret Shiryon, whose relationship as friends with Rabbi Rick Jacobs, emeritus rabbi of WRT and the president of the Union for Reform Judaism, goes all the way back to the 1970s when they were in college in California together. Nobody could have predicted that a synagogue of 25 pioneering Reform Jews, a thing that really didn't exist in Israel at the time, would go on to become a congregation of 1,000 families today. But it's an amazing congregation. They've outgrown their building, which is just a prefab house that they had to lobby the government to give them, because unlike Orthodox congregations, Reform synagogues in Israel are not funded by the government. And the only way in which a Reform rabbi can collect a government salary the way every other Orthodox rabbi does in Israel is through a dispensation from the Ministry for Culture and Sport, and not actually the religious ministry. In Kilat Yozma, their now rabbi, my dear friend Nir Barkin, this Moses-looking fellow here, who used to be the community shaliach through the Jewish agency from Israel to the community of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Rabbi Barkin spoke to our congregation and said in his entire career as a rabbi, he has strenuously tried to avoid being political from the bima in Israel. And yet he said, this week, things changed. And what he did was he hung next to the Holy Ark, that's the Ark, where the Torah in that Ark was donated by Westchester Reformed Temple in 2007 when we commissioned the writing of that Torah scroll there. We had a Torah to give away, and we presented it as a gift to our sister congregation in Modin, Israel. It was brought over flying coach right next to our dear friend Aaron Pankin, Rabbi Aaron Pankin of blessed memory. We have pictures of Rabbi Pankin, may his memory be a blessing, sitting next to a Torah scroll that is inside of that ark. But what Rabbi Barkin did this week was he hung something special next to the ark, which is this document here, which is the Declaration of Independence of the State of Israel, 75 years old this year. And the words on some of the banners that they were giving out, these posters at Kilat Yozma, which are actually printed by the Reform movement in Israel, make clear the intention. So I have some souvenirs. This one says, Yehudit v'demokratit, which means Jewish, and democratic, which is our aspiration for what the character of the state of Israel must be. This one says, B'Shem hayachadut nagen al demokratia, which means in the name of Judaism, we will guard democracy. And I'll explain what this one says in a few minutes, as well as the bumper sticker that I'm holding. So the next morning, I had the opportunity to go out with a few friends, and the wonderful woman on the left-hand side of the frame, Sarah Tuttle Singer. She's an amazing. Of course, she's Kenneth Rudnitsky's friend, because everybody is Kenneth Rudnitsky's friend. Kenneth Rudnitsky is the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon linchpin in the Jewish world. She's an amazing journalist who wrote this wonderful book called Jerusalem Drawn and Quartered, One Woman's Year in the Heart of the Christian, Muslim, Armenian, and Jewish quarters of Old Jerusalem. And she showed us around all of her favorite hidden spots in the old city of Jerusalem. I've already been in touch with her about having her do this walking tour with our adults trip to Israel next December, as if you needed any more incentive to come with Cantor Kleinman and me and the congregation to Israel in December. So just a few highlights. This gentleman here is a fourth-generation fabric merchant who has clothed popes and other dignitaries from his fabric workshop in the heart of the Christian quarter of Jerusalem. This is the best coffee I've had in Israel. And this is our guide's favorite tattoo parlor, Razuk Tattoo. And you can't see it here, but it says, tattoo with heritage since 1300. It is a family-owned tattoo parlor that goes back 27 generations. It's amazing. Here I am. One of the best things about returning to Israel is that you get to be with mishpacha, with friends who have become like family over the years. On the right, Uri Feinberg, whose dad was actually my dean when I was a student in rabbinical school in Israel my first year, and who is, as Rabbi Jacobs likes to call Uri, the Michael Jordan of guides in Israel. Has anyone ever taken a trip with Uri Feinberg? He's just the best of the best. And to the left, Josh Weinberg, who is the head of ARTSA, the Association of Reformed Zionists of America. You can think of that as the Israel address of the North American Reform movement. It's the way in which we make our values known in Israel as Reformed Jews here in America. Josh Weinberg was also a guest to our congregation for our 65th anniversary in 2018. Other way. More friends. Being with the Central Conference of American Rabbis, which is the Reform Rabbinical Assembly in Israel, is a chance to have also not just a reunion with any old friends, but with the WRT Club. So it seems like wherever you go, there's a connection to Westchester Reformed Temple. Here, there's me. Rabbi Rick Jacobs, president of the Union for Reform Judaism, emeritus rabbi of WRT, led our congregation with strength and vision for 20 years. Rabbi Beth Kalish, who is in suburban Philly now, grew up at WRT. She's a wonderful rabbi. This fellow here, anyone know who that rabbi is? Jeff Mutterpearl, who's that? That's Rabbi David Stern, son of Rabbi Jack Stern. Rabbi David Stern is the senior rabbi of the largest congregation in the Southwest of America in Dallas, Texas, and he also happens to be the family rabbi to Cantor Kleinman and presided over her bat mitzvah. So, that's a really lovely WRT connection. More WRT connections. Okay, we're going to play Name That Rabbi. If you've been around WRT for any... Okay, so who's that rabbi here? That's Rabbi Beth Singer. Beth and her husband, Rabbi Jonathan Singer, are co-rabbis of Temple Emmanuel in San Francisco and will be retiring with great honor in June of 2024. And anyone know this fellow here, that rabbi? Rabbi Ken Chasin, my dear friend and immediate predecessor, and were it not for my friend Rabbi Ken Chasin, I probably never would have come to work at WRT. Called me up in December of 2002, said, "Do I have a job opportunity for you?" He was vacating the position of associate rabbi at WRT, and he knew that I was in a process of applying to work in New York, where my wife's acting career was based. More WRT connections. All right, does anyone know who that rabbi is on the left? Valerie, who's that? That is Rabbi Alyssa Mendelson, Graf. Rabbi Alyssa Mendelson is a rabbi of a congregation in Port Washington, New York, also grew up at WRT. Parents Barry and Sherry Mendelson have been members for a very long time. And this is a dear friend of mine. That's Kara Katsu, not a rabbi, but was classmates with Rabbi Leah Citrin here in our teen program at WRT. Now is a mom of a beautiful baby boy, Liam, who was born just 8 months ago, and I got to meet him for the first time. She made Aliyah to Tel Aviv 11 years ago and has a thriving digital marketing career in Israel and a wonderful family. And her dad, Rabbi Jan Katsu, who teaches at the Hebrew Union College, happens to be my chavruta, my rabbinic study partner. One of the weird things about the CCAR is a whole bunch of us Reform rabbis went to Amherst College. I don't know why this is. It's not a college distinguished for a particularly large Jewish population, but here I am with my friends Andy Dubin, Rabbi Hara Person, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the Central Conference of American Rabbis, Rabbi Barry Block, sporting his Amherst pride, and there I am. I was also there in a very special capacity. I was invited, along with my friend Allison Berry, who's one of the co-rabbis of Temple Shalom in Newton, Massachusetts, to lead worship for the entire conference on Shabbat morning. So just last Saturday, on the 25th of February, Allison and I led services for 200, and if you think that it's an easy thing to lead a service for 250 rabbis, think again. Because I'll tell you, just as when I'm a Jew in the pew, all I can do is critique what's happening up on the bima. So that's happening times 300 people, because you also had the entire Israel movement of Reform rabbis as well. But it was a special treat. A truly special treat to lead worship with these two people. This is Rabbi Cantor Shani Ben Or and her musical collaborator Boaz Dorot. Together, the two of them comprise Ensemble Nigunim, or the Nigunim Ensemble, creating new music for new Jewish worship in Israel. She is the first Israeli Rabbi Cantor, and her mentor, of course, was Rabbi Cantor Angela Warnick-Buchdahl. Another WRT connection. And I can't wait to bring back some of the music that they composed specifically for this service to share with our WRT community and our cantors. So I'm here being installed as a member of the board of this organization, which has been around since the 1880s. It is the longest extant rabbinical association in the world, and it's the way in which Reform rabbis collectively raise our voice for Judaism and progressive Judaism and social justice. It's the way in which we make our needs and priorities known, so when we negotiate contracts with congregations, the Central Conference helps rabbis advocate for themselves with the not quite the same utility as a labor union, but in many ways, the norms and standards and ethics of the Reform rabbinate are all produced and regulated through the CCAR. Also, a robust ethics process to make sure that rabbis do not run afoul of the ethics of congregational service is also run and regulated by the CCAR. So I'm on a 2-year volunteer board term with the CCAR. Now, I promised that there would be Torah. I promised there would be Torah tonight. And tonight, as we heard Cantor Kleinman saying in her blessing to Leo Judah, indicated that tonight is a special Shabbat on the Jewish calendar. It is Shabbat Zachor, which means the Sabbath of remembering. And it's always the Shabbat that comes immediately before the Purim holiday, which this year begins Monday night. And I hope you will come out in droves to have a really fun, memorable Purim where we're going to have comedy. And if you have little ones, we have a special Purim in the JLL on Sunday morning. But Monday night is going to be an amazing night, 7 o'clock. We'll say more during our announcements. But Purim also has a serious side, and that serious side is expressed on the Sabbath right before Purim, on this Shabbat Zachor. We read a special passage that's actually on the sheets that you took as you came into the sanctuary that begins with these words, Zachor et Amalek. Remember the nation of Amalek. And I won't make us read this passage right now. This is for you to do a little bit of deeper contemplation over Shabbat. But of all the many enemies that the Jewish people have encountered throughout our millennia of history, none is more insidious, none more feared none more loathed than the nation of Amalek. And why? Because Amalek is the enemy of the biblical Israelites who sneaked up on them from behind and attacked when they least expected an enemy to even be anywhere near them. And from that moment forward, the Torah has commanded us, never forget what Amalek did to your people, the horrendous way in which they attacked you from the rear when you were least expecting it. And it even has this paradoxical, oxymoronic commandment, do not forget. In other words, remember to blot out the memory of Amalek, which is why it is customary to write Amalek's name and then cross it out. There's also a custom in some Jewish communities on Purim that you write Amalek on the bottom of the sole of your shoe in chalk, and then all day long on Purim, you're stomping out the name of the worst enemy of the Jewish people. Amalek provides lots of fodder for the rabbis over the ages to comment and speculate on the identity of this feared, loathed enemy nation. Who really is Amalek? Is Amalek the wicked Haman of the Purim story? The Bible, thank you. The Bible will tell us that Haman is a direct descendant of the Amalekite nation. But elsewhere in rabbinic literature, Amalek is associated with the great empires that have attacked the Jewish people when our defenses were down, most especially the Romans who subjugated Jewish sovereignty for generations. Who is Amalek? Amalek is the enemy that you don't see coming. Throughout our week in Israel, we heard from many important Israeli officials. Featured here are two leaders of the Labor Party, which is the center-left opposition party in the current Knesset. Most of us are aware that the governing coalition is comprised of many seats of Benjamin Netanyahu's Likud party, together with much farther right parties that include parties whose leaders have espoused anti-Arab racist ideology and wish to enact policies that include suppressing the rights of the LGBTQ community, endorsing the rights of ultra-Orthodox Jews in their communities to do things like segregate buses so that women are forced to sit in the back of buses and dress according to modesty codes. There are some very, very, very bad actors in the far-right parties that are now part of the governing coalition. We heard from two in the opposition. Merav Michaeli, who is the leader of the Labor Party in Israel, the Labor Party being one of the great storied political parties in Israeli history, the party of Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin and Ben Gurion. And this gentleman here, my dear friend Rabbi Gilad Kariv, who is the only Reform rabbi ever to sit in the Knesset, who's also a Labor Party leader. They spoke to us about the current challenges with this government coalition that, first and foremost, only 2 months after taking office, has proposed a sweeping set of what they call reforms and what the opposition calls a coup to subvert the rights of the judiciary, to make the judiciary subservient to the Knesset or the legislature, so that a simple 61-person majority in the Knesset could override a judicial ruling in an Israeli history where the Supreme Court has been the only body supporting the rights of minorities, both religious and ethnic minorities like the Arab Israeli community, Palestinian Israelis, LGBTQ Israelis, Jewish Israelis who are not Orthodox like most of the people in this sanctuary tonight. Not Israeli. Gilad Kariv stands in the middle of a throng of people who are mostly Israeli security, protecting him from an angry mob of Haredim, of ultra-Orthodox Jews, who want to stop Rabbi Kariv from bringing a Torah scroll with this beautiful embroidered mantle to the women of the wall who wish to pray and read Torah on Rosh Chodesh. We were there for Rosh Chodesh Adar, the month in which Purim is celebrated, just last week, and hundreds of Reform rabbis joined Rabbi Kariv. How was he able to get through? It turns out that members of the Knesset have immunity at the wall and can go through without a security check. So he has a free pass to get to the wall. So every month on Rosh Chodesh, he takes a Torah scroll so that women of the wall can pray, and usually is prevented from actually getting that Torah scroll to its destination. There they are praying. You notice no Torah scroll. The Torah scroll's out in front of them, though I don't know if they opened it. A story. The family pictured in this photograph were members of Westchester Reformed Temple from 2003 until about 2014 or so. Amnon, Itai, and Safi Zeidenberg belonged to WRT. They had come here from Tel Aviv. Dad, Amnon, works for Bank Leumi, the National Bank of Israel. Mom is an incredible teacher and spiritual guide. Itai was in my very first 10th grade confirmation class at WRT. He's now 34 with an 8-month-old baby of his own. And we've remained in touch over the years. And we had coffee together in Tel Aviv. And before Amnon could even say shalom, he says, "You have arrived with your colleagues in Israel at the most critical week in the 65 years of Israel's 75 years that I've been alive. The most critical time in our country's history." He said, "The crisis now facing our country is existential. It will determine if Israel will exist as a Jewish and democratic state, which countless of my countrymen," he said, "laid down their lives to defend." And so we did what patriots do when we love and care about a place. We went to the streets to make our voices heard. We carried those posters, and this one as well, which says, "Beli Bagatz ein shivyon." Without the Supreme Court, there will be no equality. And others had banners that said what is written on this bumper sticker. There was a group of women dressed as handmaids from The Handmaid's Tale. I'll show you in a moment. It says, "Eshet chayil loveshet ma shemitchashek la." A woman of valor, playing off of the traditional prayer. A woman of valor wears whatever she wants. 160,000, that's in Tel Aviv alone. Every Shabbat, every Motzei Shabbat, every Saturday night for the last 8 weeks since this new government was seated, increasing numbers of Israelis have taken to the streets to demonstrate for a Jewish state that is also democratic. The protests have been peaceful and loud, almost like a rock concert. I'll show you a few images. There are the handmaids. There's Itai and me. There's Rabbi Daniel Groper from Community Synagogue of Rai, just up the street. And this is just one small slice of the demonstrations. It just went on for block after block after block. And this guy you may know. Rabbi Rick Jacobs addressed the crowd. This is the first time a diaspora leader came to Israel to speak to the protesters. And I will tell you, I was surrounded by Israelis, including some who know about Reform Judaism, but most who know nothing, have no organizational affiliation with Reform Judaism. They were saying, Toda Rabbah. They were saying, "Thank you, Rabbi Rick Jacobs, for speaking in a voice that is both one of solidarity, but also one of democracy." And they were especially grateful that he addressed the crowd in Hebrew, to make it clear that we are one people, one people. Some more images. I did this kid's bar mitzvah. That's the youngest of the Zeidenberg boys, right here on this bima. And this was a building-sized poster that says, "Demokratia gidola mipolitika," which means democracy is greater than politics. There are some things that are unifying not an entire country. Of course, it's a divisive issue, and there's still a lot to be said for compromise and dialogue that might emerge out of this process. But right now, there is a vast number of Israelis who are not remaining silent. There we all are. That's his girlfriend. It was quite a night. I want to leave you with an image and with a text. It's not all politics when you go to Israel. It's strawberry season now. And when you go to Israel, hummus is always in season. It is a fascinating, vibrant country that has something for all of your senses. When I'm in Israel, I feel more alive. When I'm in Israel, I know that I'm with family. My friends, this is no time for the American Jewish community to throw up our hands in disgust and walk away. This is a time for us to lean in. This is a time for us to acknowledge that there are only 15.3 million Jewish people in the world, and more than half of them live there, in a land of strawberries and hummus and political protest and complicated relations between Israel and its neighbors and among Israelis in Israel itself. We have to lean into this moment. And that's why I'm particularly proud that our clergy team colleague, Rabbi Bacon, will be going to Israel in just 2 weeks with UJA Federation of New York and a delegation of other rabbis from around the New York area to meet again with high-level officials and to let Israelis know that we stand with them. We stand with Israel even when things are hard. And so think of that beautiful text that soon-to-be cantor Becky Mann and soon-to-be cantor Isaac Sanadasor sang in lieu of an Oseh Shalom tonight. They said, Mi odea, who knows? Perhaps it is for a moment just like this that you have arrived at a position where you can influence an outcome. Perhaps, who knows, we've arrived at that moment now. Shabbat Shalom.